All right, let's get into it. Another Wednesday live video. We are talking work-life balance. This is a six-part series. This is video 6 of 6. And if you haven't tuned into my last 5 videos, let me just do a brief recap. The first one, we talked about going into the extremes and how you have to understand how to counterbalance. And when you understand this, it is going to make that whole idea of work-life balance so much easier. The second thing we talked about is going very, very small, getting very, very granular in what you are trying to achieve. And when you do that, you won't feel so overwhelmed with the 20 to-do list things that you have to do. The third thing we talked about is multitasking and why it is a complete lie. You don't become more productive, you become more overwhelmed. We talked about discipline and why that's probably a lie as well. And that if we actually harness the idea of selective discipline for what we are trying to accomplish and our goals, our dreams, our vision, that is going to produce much better results. And the fifth thing we talked about just last week was willpower, and how willpower, when we try to use more and more willpower, it is actually draining us because willpower is in short supply. And so you can't continue to generate it. And that's why most of us never hit our goals, because willpower is waning. Just like a muscle, it fatigues. And so when you learn some of the things I talked about in that video, you don't worry about willpower anymore. And you actually start to harness and tap into other aspects of energy systems to get you to your goals, and that you stay more and more consistent. Today, we're going to talk about this whole idea that big is bad and how that relates to work-life balance. Before we jump into anything, my name is Joel Evan. If you don't know me, I had a career as a first responder for almost 15 years before becoming a coach and helping men build unshakable marriages and deeper connection with their kids. If you know anything about my story, I was a complete wreck for almost 10 years in my marriage before I finally had that aha moment, figured it out, and then I took that exact same system and now I replicate it for other men so that they can start living their full purpose. Because again, this whole idea of work-life balance, it's really just a lie. And we try to do that. I did that for so many years in my life, where I was just doing a lot of work, focusing on my health, but my family was getting leftovers. And it just absolutely wrecked me because I was falling into the trap of work-life balance. I'll just eventually, once I get rich or once I get this, then I'll start focusing on my family. And I'm here to tell you that never works. And that's why I'm so committed to doing this 6-part series, because I have a lot of guys that reach out to me and they're saying, how do I balance work and life much better? And that's why we're diving deep in this series today. So if you want to learn more about my community and my group and what I do, just simply drop me a line, drop me a comment, and I'll be sure to reach out to you and get you all the details. Now, let's talk about how this idea of big is bad and how it actually relates to work-life balance. Big is bad is a complete lie, just like all the other ones I told you about. Because think about it, if you fear big success, you'll either avoid it or you're going to sabotage your efforts to achieve it. You mention big with achievement and your thoughts are hard, complicated, time-consuming, overwhelming, intimidating. But when we connect with big with bad, we jump into this trigger of shrinking our actual thinking. We shrink, we get small because it feels unsafe, and it actually lowers our trajectory of where we're trying to go. So staying where we are, that's just normal. That feels completely logical. So what happens is people develop this paradigm that big is bad, small thinking then rules the day, and they never see the light of it. And the fact that we actually have airplanes, that we've sent people to space, that we have electric cars, all of these started with one big idea. And the fact of the matter is, I'm here to challenge you guys today and say that none of us actually know our limits. But then people say, but Joel, we need to be realistic. Well, here's my answer to that. Do you know what your limits are? And the answer is no. No one does. But yet, given the option to go big or go small, most of us choose small because we want to play it safe. But nothing extraordinary has ever been accomplished that way. Success requires action, and action requires thought. But here's the catch. The only actions that become springboards to succeeding big are those informed by big thinking to begin with. And I used to think that my marriage and relationship with my kids, it would never change. But then I started thinking, but what if it could change? What would that look like? And that was one of the biggest shifts that I ever made in changing the trajectory of my marriage and my family. I started playing all out and I went big, and then everything changed. But most of the time, we don't play big for this very reason. And I'm going to talk to you about an experiment with fleas that actually proves this. So the experimenter took a group of fleas and put them in a jar with a lid on the jar for 3 days. Now, the fleas were bouncing up and down in the jar. They're trying to get out of it. After 3 days, the experimenter takes off the jar. Takes off the lid of the jar. The fleas now had the ability to get out of the jar and escape. But guess what? They didn't. They were conditioned to their upper limit of what they believed. And interestingly enough, their offspring, their kids, if you will, develop the same conditions. So how you show up now gets passed down to your kids. This is monumental, right? This is why people talk about reinventing themselves in their career, their business, because small boxes are actually what got them there. What you build today is either going to empower or restrict you for tomorrow. And big goals, of course, they seem unattainable at first. Yet, how many times have you set out to do something that seemed like a real stretch at the time, only to discover that it was much easier than you thought? It's crucial for us to realize on this journey to achieving big, you get bigger. Big requires growth. And by the time you arrive, you're now big too. And so achievement and abundance, they all show up because these are all natural outcomes of doing the right things with no limits attached. Don't fear big. Instead, fear mediocrity. Fear the lack of living to your fullest. When we fear big, we either run toward lesser outcomes and opportunities, or we just simply run away from the big ones. And only living big will actually let you experience your true life and your true work potential. So this ties in with the second video that I actually did on work-life balance series, which we titled Extreme Pareto. And that means getting very granular, focusing on the small. And going big feels daunting at first, but if you change your focus to just one big idea or thing, just like the way that I did with my marriage and my family, you're actually going to feel less stressed about all the other noise that's around you. Because you know you only have one thing, and that one thing is going to knock all the other dominoes down. So I want to leave you guys with 4 big ideas today to kind of wrap it up. Number 1 is think big. Avoid incremental thinking that simply asks, what do I do next? This is probably what got you here in the first place. And so a good rule of thumb, which is when you're first starting out, is just double down everywhere in your life. If your goal is 10, well, then how can I reach 20? And then set a goal so far above what you want that you'll be building a plan that practically guarantees your original goal. Number 2, don't order from the menu. Don't choose the outcomes that are available that you already know. That's you living in the past. You need to imagine outcomes that you never even had. I don't know if you guys remember Apple's 1997 campaign called Think Different. Well, the ad says people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the only ones who do. Number 3, act bold. Big thoughts go nowhere without bold action. You need to imagine and see it before it actually happens. And if you can't do that, then go study the people who have already done it and who have already achieved it. What are their models? What are their systems? What are their habits? And the relationships of other people who have already found the answer. That's why getting a mentor and getting a coach is so powerful. You just copy what they did. That's what I did in so many areas of my life, in business, in marriage, in health. Everything I've done has been from hiring a coach or a mentor who's already got there. That sped up my process. And the last one, number 4, don't fear failure. You've got to adopt a growth mindset. You got to look at failure as learnings. Extraordinary results aren't built only on extraordinary results. They're actually built on failures. Learn from your mistakes and grow. That's it for this week's Wednesday live training, and it completes our 6 of 6 work-life balance. If you have missed any of the other videos, go back and check them out. They are all worth a watch. They're all very short to 10 to 15 minute videos that I guarantee is going to up-level your life and get you where you want to go, and especially knock down this big barrier that everyone complains about, which is work-life balance. If you want to learn more about what I do in my men's community and how I help men build unshakable marriages and deeper connection with their kids, please reach out to me. I'll send you the details. I have a free Facebook group. I have many of guides that I have put a lot of hard work in that are like 20 pages in depth of work. And I mean, if people just actually followed some of the principles that I share in those guides, they would up-level their life so much. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of cool things coming out. I've got an app coming out, and I've got a lot of other things that I'm excited to share with you guys that are just going to be easy for you to get access to. The app is going to have an entire communication module. My 3-day course is going to be there. It's all going to be free, including the app. So stay tuned. Lots of good things coming. If you want to learn more about Limitless Fathers and that group, reach out to me, send me a comment or a DM, and I'll get back to you. Have an amazing rest of your week, guys, and go crush it.